Close to the start of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Team Avatar arrives on Kyoshi Island, populated by the mighty all-female Kyoshi warriors, named after the former Avatar Kyoshi, whose claim to fame is creating this entire island because Chin the Great wanted to conquer it, and in splitting the island from the mainland, she kills Chin. Anyway, the warriors do not take kindly to Aang's appearance on the island, and they tie him up and refuse to believe him when he claims to be the Avatar. Sokka at the start of the series is rather misogynistic, so he can't believe that he's been tied up by a group of girls, and he says so. Their leader, Suki, does not take kindly to his remarks. Thankfully, Katara, the member of the team with the most sense, steps in and stops everything from turning very ugly very quickly. Aang later demonstrates his bending. The Kyoshi warriors are suitably amazed, and so they untie Team Avatar. It's a fine episode of the show. Aang has to learn a lesson about jealousy. Sokka has to earn the respect of the Kyoshi warriors back. There's this beautiful dialogue-free scene very close to the end of the episode where Aang is just flying on his glider above the village, which is burning. He knows that this is because of him. If he had left earlier, this would never have happened, and he feels the consequences of his decisions. He feels that sense of guilt. It's a very effective scene. But the most relevant development in this episode, in terms of setting up the rest of the show, comes in the relationship between Sokka and Suki. Near the end of the episode, after Sokka has earned back Suki's respect and learned the moral about not being a misogynistic jerk, Suki kisses him unexpectedly. Despite Sokka's macho posturing, it is implied this is the first time he has been kissed romantically in any context. He doesn't know what to do. Even though he wanted to earn her respect, he never thought she would think of him like this. The first time I watched the show, I wondered why he fell in love with her. As to why she fell in love with him, well, we don't get as much information as we get about the members of Team Avatar, or even the 3 members of Team Azula, but I think it is implied clearly enough. Sokka is a handsome kid who proves he is willing to learn from his mistakes. He is funny, but he is also introspective. He can understand what he did wrong, why it was wrong, and how he can try and correct it in the future. None of this means he does not make mistakes. Far from it. He makes a litany of mistakes over the course of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but what he does not do is allow these mistakes to define him. He dedicates himself to this relationship. Well, I wish we got more information on Suki's side of the relationship. There is still enough to allow us to make some educated guesses. For why Sokka loves Suki, we have to dig a little deeper. Sure, you could say that it's hard not to love someone who is the first person to fall in love with you, and is also a strong and capable and intelligent warrior with a lot of clever schemes. But also think about how on a microcosm, Sokka's character growth throughout the course of Avatar can be seen in microcosm via his relationship with Suki. Not only is she supportive and considerate, but she pushes him slowly but firmly down the path he needs to go down in order to become a better person. But before we progress any further, we have to ask ourselves an important question. What exactly is Sokka's character growth throughout the course of Avatar: The Last Airbender? What is his journey? If you asked him what he wanted his journey to be at the start of the show, he would have said that he wanted to become a strong warrior like his father and smash as many Fire Nation skulls as possible. But as the basic writing advice entails, creating an interesting character is about dividing what a character wants from what a character needs. What characters want could be to return to some pre-journey pastoral ideal, or it could be the complete opposite. It could be to become rich and successful and change your life permanently. Either way, the character's basic worldview is preserved. They're not really challenged, and this makes sense. We as fans, critics, analysts, whatever, can be sort of harsh on characters who aren't changing as quickly as we might want them to, but think about yourself and those around you. Does anyone really like to have their entire conception of themselves and their environment disrupted? No, of course not. There are very few people who do. But the status quo needs to be disrupted for positive change to occur. Think about Bilbo Baggins in the classic hero's journey story, The Hobbit. What he wants is to return to his simple life in the countryside. But this would be worse for the dwarves and worse for him as a person, for he would not have to evolve into a more selfless conception of himself and the world. Because what he wants is different from what he needs, his journey challenges his basic perceptions, and he emerges from it a better person. Now, obviously, not all characters change for the better throughout their journeys. The Hobbit's sequel, The Lord of the Rings, demonstrates this rather decisively. Frodo is not the better for having gone on this long and perilous journey. Rather, he is a broken and scarred person. As he says, the Shire has been saved, but not for him. Nonetheless, when a character's journey does change them for the better, the wants versus needs debate comes into importance, and this is the case with Sokka. What he needs is to stop prioritizing physical strength and start understanding the importance of mental and spiritual growth in becoming a great warrior. Sokka grows in sensitivity throughout the course of Avatar. That term is usually applied in an intrapersonal and interpersonal context, meaning sensitivity with others and sensitivity with oneself, and that is the case here. Sokka better understands his own experiences and the experiences of others as he journeys, becoming more empathetic and more introspective in the process. But sensitivity also means sensitivity to one's environment, both physical and sociological. In Sokka's Master, he manages to use his environment to his advantage in his fight against Master Piandao, and we see the same level of creativity displayed in the final battle against the Fire Lord. They're outnumbered, but Sokka comes up with this brilliant plan to use the Fire Nation's own fleet of airships against them. On the sociological side, we have, for example, Sokka's plan to invade the Fire Nation on the day of the solar eclipse. Now, you might object and say that this is physical, as they're taking advantage of a physical change, the moon covering the sun, but while the gap between physical and sociological is not as wide as you might think, I would classify this under sociological because it necessitates an understanding of the Fire Nation. For this plan to work, the Fire Nation needs to be cocky, they need to be arrogant, they need to believe that because they have more soldiers, they will not need to worry about an attack from the rebellion, even on the day of the solar eclipse. For this plan to work, he needs to anticipate the Fire Nation to have a lapse in judgment, and indeed, this is what happens, or rather it's what would have happened if not for Azula, who finds out about the plan ahead of time after what happens at the end of Season 2. When Azula and her team infiltrate the Fire Nation. These different varieties of sensitivity are, like the different varieties of bending, not separate, but united. They're all examples of the same impulse, and that impulse being to abandon the blunt generalizations he once applied to both himself and the Fire Nation. And what's the first time he really starts to grow? It's when he is with Suki, and he has to abandon his old prejudices. To his credit, he manages to do this. It's also Suki who forces him to actually confront his feelings about Yue instead of ignoring them and transforming them, sublimating them, perhaps, into being overprotective of Suki, even in situations that are clearly not dangerous, such as when he spots a spider and wants to get rid of it. Sokka does not just love Suki because she saves him multiple times in fate-defying stunts, such as when they're all in prison, in The Boiling Rock, episode 315, and in the final battle at the end of the show, when they're on the Fire Nation airships. He also loves her because she helps guide him toward what is right, away from tribalism and shallowness and toward a more mature and complete understanding of the world. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is a brilliant, empathetic, compassionate show, and it only gets better on every rewatch. I love how much effort it puts into even character dynamics outside the main focus of the show, outside Aang and Zuko and even Katara. Every relationship in the show is remarkably well defined, for the most part. At least considering how much time they get in the show. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon, I promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.